Chapter 250. Zhu Mei and Qin Yulian looked at each other. They both knew that Yi Chen was very powerful, but they did not expect him to be this powerful. Half of half. That meant that he had not even used 30% of his power. His opponent was Yuan Henjing, who was ranked 59 in the last hidden dragon rank. Right then, Yi Chen had become a stranger in their eyes. It was not a stranger in terms of friendship, but a stranger in terms of power. There was a kind of strangeness called gap. Glancing at Len Chen Zhuangfei, Qin Yulian forced a smile and thought to herself, "You have set Yi Chen as your goal. Unfortunately, you do not know how tiring and desperate it is to catch up with him. From the moment he surpassed us, the gap between us had already been decided." Su Jing's fifth battle had ended with her victory. She walked down from the stage and saw Zhu Mei and Qin Yulian's expressions. She knew what was going on, but she shook her head silently. In her mind, Yi Chen was a monster. He had a calmness and willpower that did not match his age. Even she, who was always calm, felt ashamed of herself. With her sharp observation, she had never seen such horrifying qualities in any young man. Sometimes, she wondered if there was anything that could make him lose his mind. Unfortunately, besides Yi Chen himself, no one really knew him. In fact, Yi Chen sometimes did not know himself too well. Because Yi Chen was an orphan in the other world, he had to work hard and improve himself. Therefore, when other kids were playing around, he was already very mature. In some aspects, he was even more mature than an adult. After he became an adult, his mind was even more outstanding, and nothing could shake him. Of course, not every orphan was like Yi Chen. After all, everyone had a different way of growing up. However, after coming to this world, Yi Chen, who was seen as a piece of trash by others, was actually very smart. When he was bullied by his cousin Yi Chen, he knew how to be patient and think about the big picture. He didn't want to make his father feel bad, so he worked even harder behind the scenes, using 10 times the effort in exchange for a little reward. Otherwise, with his talent, it would be almost impossible for him to become an outer disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School. However, everything has its pros and cons. Years of forbearance had caused the Yi Chen of this world to lose his sharpness, a sharpness that allowed him to advance bravely. Sometimes, losing one's sharpness was even more terrifying than having no talent. If everything had developed normally, and the current Yi Chen had not appeared, the chances of him becoming an inner disciple would have been extremely small, let alone becoming a core disciple, or even his current position. Everything was like smoke in the past. After merging with Yi Chen's soul from this world, Yi Chen's weaknesses were infinitely reduced, while his strengths were infinitely magnified, creating a monster in the eyes of others. The fifth round, Yi Chen versus Cui Chang. I admit defeat. Yi Chen's power was obvious to everyone. He was the first contestant to admit defeat. To this, Zhu Mei laughed and said, "You will have it easy from now on. Except for a few people in Group 3, basically no one would be able to compete with you. Instead of wasting time and being killed by you within a second, it would be better for you to save up your energy and spirit to fight against other contestants that you can handle." Yi Chen did not really care if there were people who had admitted defeat or not, since all he needed to do was wave his sword once on the stage, and it would consume almost no energy at all. On the other hand, Zhu Mei's battle would not be easy at all, so he reminded her, "With my estimation, in your group, there would be around 3 to 7 people who would get the full score. In the following battles, if you do not lose a single one, you would have a 100% chance of making it to the next round. If you lose one, you would have 50% chance of making it to the next round. If you lose 2, you would have less than 10% chance." Although Yi Chen's words were not accurate to a certain degree, it was still very close. It should be known that in terms of vision, even astral-reaching realm warriors might not be better than him. All the information of every contestant in Zhu Mei's group was in Yi Chen's head. Even if they were hiding their power, he could still see through most of them. Then he added the probability and statistics, and finally came up with this number. Zhu Mei did not doubt him at all, so she said, "Then in the next 5 battles, I would have to lose one. It would be a bit difficult, but I will try my best." She had just won the 5th battle, and now she had won 3 battles and lost 2. The first stage of the competition could be a bit lucky. As long as you are lucky enough, it should not be a problem for you to make it to the second stage. In the first stage of the competition, there would be more than 50 contestants in each group, and everyone would have to go through 10 battles. At most, they would run into 10 people, and the remaining 40 or so people would not have a chance at all. Therefore, even the weakest contestants would be able to get into the top few of their group, if they were lucky enough. With Jumei's power, it would not be a miracle for her to make it to the next round. Looks like Lynch has met his opponent. Right at that moment, the two's attention was attracted by the battle of the 11th group. The 2 people on the stage were none other than the North Snow Quick-Blade Lynch, and the other was Wei Renjia, who was ranked 37th in the last Hidden Dragon rank. On the stage, the blade light was flying everywhere, and the human shadows were moving in a blur. Both of them were young warriors who had made great achievements in their blade arts, and it was hard to tell who they were. Yi Chen shook his head. Lynch was a bit unlucky. No matter cultivation or blade intent, Wei Renjia was way more powerful than Lynch. The reason why they were evenly matched right now was because Wei Renjia had not used all of his power yet. Obviously, he was just excited about the result. Good, not bad. Even if I give you another 1 or 2 years, I might not be able to beat you. Wei Renjia laughed out loud. His blade aura suddenly became even more powerful, pushing Lynch into an absolute disadvantage. Snow Dance Sky. Lynch did not have any expression on his face. He held his air-shattering blade with both of his hands, and his blade aura started to roll up. All of a sudden, it was like a snowstorm had started to fall on the stage, and the blade light was everywhere. Break! Without any technique, Wei Renjia held his blade with only one hand, jumped into the air, and threw out a blade attack. Boom! The snow-like blade light was shattered one after another, and Lynch crashed into the dark blue light wall. Thank you! Wei Renjia held his fists together as he put away his great blade, and jumped off the stage. Off the stage, a lot of people were watching this battle and discussing it. Wei Renjia is indeed a blade art master of the young generation. His blade intent has at least reached the entry level. Lynch is not bad either. His blade art skills are no weaker than Wei Renjia's. The only thing he is lacking is his cultivation and blade intent. With enough time, it would not be impossible for him to catch up with Wei Renjia. Indeed, normal blade artists are nothing in Wei Renjia's eyes. He obviously likes Lynch. Oh right, can Lynch make it into the top 10 new stars this year? It would be a bit difficult. Even if he could make it, he would probably be at the bottom. There are too many new warriors this year, and it would not be easy to stand out from the rest. Plus, there are also insane martial geniuses like Tuabaku and Qian Yin. There would be 2 less spots for no reason. Do not forget that Xikong Sheng's disciple sister, Gu Yuyin, is also not to be underestimated. Back in the day, the life and death realm king of the floating mountain martial school, the Stone King, had offended too many people, which led to his whole family being killed. His bloodline had been cut off. But no one knew that the Stone King had an illegitimate daughter outside, and Gu Yuyin was indeed the descendant of that illegitimate daughter. She has the king bloodline of the Stone King. Adding Gu Yuyin, the top 3 of the top 10 new stars have already been decided. The rest of the 7 new stars still need to be discovered. The top 10 new stars were not a regular title, because there would always be some extremely talented martial geniuses appearing in every Hidden Dragon rank competition. If they were bright enough, they would all be ranked. After the competitions of the Hidden Dragon rank had finished, those warriors who did not come to watch the competitions would be able to know how powerful those young warriors were through their understanding of the top 10 new stars. That way, they would be able to have a better understanding of them. Otherwise, with so many contestants in the competition, it would be really hard to understand all of them. The 6th battle, Yi Chen against Shueqiuyan. I give up. The pretty-looking young lady raised up her hand, indicating that she had given up. The 7th battle, Yi Chen against Guaheng. I give up. The 8th battle, Yi Chen. The 9th battle, Yi Chen. No one knew if it was because Yi Chen had killed Yuan Hengying with only one sword attack, But from the fifth battle onwards, all of the contestants who were going against Yi Chun had given up, not wanting to waste any more time. As for the other people from the Windy Nation, they seemed to be having a hard time. Out of the 9 battles, Su Jing had won 8 and lost 1. It was not a bad loss, as her opponent was a young warrior, who was ranked 22 in the last hidden dragon rank, who was extremely powerful. Even so, Su Jing did not lose immediately. She had fought for hundreds of attacks before the winner was decided, which had surprised a lot of people, and made her into the top 10 new stars. After Lynch had lost to Wei Renjia, he had lost another battle. His opponent was also a young warrior, who was ranked at the top of the last hidden dragon rank. Zhuang Fei had won 7 and lost 2. Su Wen had won 6 and lost 3. Qin Yulian had won 6 and lost 3. Zhu Mei's luck seemed to have run out. From the 8th battle onwards, she had lost all the way to the 9th battle. Without any surprises, there was no chance for her to make it to the next round. It would be a lie if Zhu Mei said that she was not disappointed, but she also understood that it was rare for her to be able to make it this far. She still had one last battle, and no matter if she won or lost, she would have to use all of her energy and make a breakthrough from there. Only then would she not waste this opportunity. The 10th battle, Yi Chun against Chen Jia. Chen Jia did not choose to give up. He was not a nobody. In the last hidden dragon rank, he was ranked 43, so he did not think that he would lose to Yi Chun. Take my most powerful attack, Tiger Break Kill. His aura was like that of a lion or a tiger. Chen Jia had crossed dozens of meters, throwing out a punch towards Yi Chun. Driven by that aura, the air in front of him seemed to have been sucked out instantly. Chin. 2 beams of sword light flashed through. The first one had broken the aura, while the second one had torn apart Chen Jia's protective Zhenqi layer. The sword pressure had blown his opponent away. Yi Chun wins. The Group 3 judge was not surprised at all. He raised his hand, indicating that Yi Chun had won the last battle. Impressive. Once he makes his move, the battle would be over instantly. Top 10 new stars, he could be ranked 5th. That Su Jing would be ranked 8th, and Gao Feng would be 9th. Lynch's cultivation is a bit weaker, so it would not be his turn to be in the top 10 new stars. In everyone's mind, Tuo Baku would be ranked 1st without a doubt. Qian Yun, a disciple of the rank 6 martial institution, the Sunset Martial School, and Gu Yuyan, a disciple of the rank 6 martial institution, the Floating Mountain Martial School, would definitely be ranked 2nd and 3rd. The 4th would be a rare martial genius from a rank 7 martial institution from the Ice Crystal Empire, and the 5th would be Yi Chun. The 6th and 7th would still be the top disciples from other rank 6 martial institutions. The 8th would be Su Jing, the 9th would be Gao Feng, and the 10th would be a top disciple from another rank 6 martial institution. This ranking might not be accurate, but judging from the battles right now, it should be about right. After all, some of the people had been hiding their power, and no one would be able to tell. Chapter 251. The first stage of the competition had officially ended. There were 4 people who had gotten full marks in the 3rd group: Yi Chun, Gao Feng, and 2 other famous young warriors from the last hidden dragon rank. The 4 of them had not run into each other in the past 10 rounds of competition, or else there would be 1 or 2 less people with full marks. The other groups had almost the same number of people with full marks as the 3rd group. The group with the highest number of full marks only had 8 people. After all, sometimes when 2 powerful warriors were fighting, one of them would definitely lose. It was not like the group with the most powerful warriors would have more people with full marks. It was a completely different concept. Unfortunately, except for Yi Chun, Su Jing and Lynch, the other 4 people from the Windy Nation had all been eliminated. Qin Yulian's competition was a bit unfair. The Sky Holy Water spell from the Rudra Martial School was at least a mid-rank Earth Realm martial art, but the lack of Zhenqi was its biggest weakness. She had the upper hand in the beginning, but after hundreds of rounds, Qin Yulian still lost, because her Zhenqi was not as dense as her opponent's. The leader of the Rudra Martial School, Long Bai, smiled lightly. She did not seem to care much about it. She mumbled to herself, "It's time to teach her the real martial art." The reason why she did not teach her martial arts before was because the Hidden Dragon rank competition was just around the corner, and it would be hard to improve her power in a short period of time. If she was too impatient, it would actually lower her power. Martial arts were different from martial arts. Martial arts were the foundation and could not be changed easily. Leader, it seems like using the small blue dragon tag to help the Sky Cloud Martial School was a wise move. This brat is not simple. The headmaster of the Ridra Martial School, the mature lady, smiled. Longbai nodded. As long as he can get into the top 10, he will be qualified to be noticed by my great-grandpa. I will tell him when the time is right. I believe he will be interested. Telling the leader after getting into the top 10? Isn't it too early? No, I think it's too late. Didn't you notice the time of his rise? He has only used 3 years to get to where he is now. This is not something that normal people can do. That's true, I almost forgot. The two were talking through their zhenqi, so people around them could not hear what they were talking about. In the Sky Cloud Martial School's formation, the fourth elder said happily, Yi Chen and Su Jing have both advanced. Below the rank 7 martial schools, the Sky Cloud Martial School is definitely one of the best. The great elder smiled. Don't be too happy yet. The second stage of the elimination competition is about to begin. That will be the most brutal competition. Half of the 24 people will be eliminated. Wait and see. I can't wait anymore. Luo Xinglia was so excited. Luo Hans Han, who was standing aside, let out a bitter smile. He was happy for Yi Chen and Su Jing. But at the same time, he was also very envious of them. If only he could join the match. Even one match would be worth it. After resting for about an hour, the second stage of the knockout stage began. According to the rules of the competition, any 2 groups would be combined into one group, which would be the 12th group. However, the number of the group would not be 3 or 12, but 7, because these 2 groups would be the 7th group to be combined. Different from the previous groups, each group now had 24 people. Out of the 24 people, only 12 of them would make it to the next stage, while the other 12 would be eliminated. As for the 12 people who made it to the next stage, no matter what their results in the ranking competitions were, they would all be the top warriors in this year's Hidden Dragon rank. 24 people fighting for 12 places. It seemed like there was only a 50% chance, but for the contestants, it was extremely cruel. Being able to stand out from all the groups was already a symbol of glory and power. Without exaggerating, they would be the elites among the young warriors of the South Ridra region. However, in the second stage of the knockout competition, half of the elite warriors would be eliminated. The pressure would be huge, more than 2 times more than what they had experienced before. There were quite a lot of powerful warriors in the 7th group, not to mention Yi Chen, Gao Feng, Teng Emo, and the 2 famous young warriors from the last Hidden Dragon rank. The 12th group would not be less powerful than the 3rd group. They might even have more powerful warriors than the 3rd group. For example, the head disciple of the Ice Extreme Martial School, who was ranked 7th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, Gu Qing, who was ranked 10th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, Wu Liangyu, who was ranked 25th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, Tang Xiaoshan, who was ranked 4th in the top 10 new stars, and Gu Tingfang, who was ranked 10th in the top 10 new stars. The first battle, Teng Emo against Gu Tingfang. The first battle of the first round had begun. Both of the contestants were not unknown warriors. They were all powerful warriors from their groups. In the 3rd group, Teng Emo had only lost to Gao Feng, and was ranked 5th in terms of points. Gu Tingfang, who was ranked 10th in the top 10 new stars, had only lost 1 battle as well, which was against Gu Qing, who was ranked 10th in the last Hidden Dragon rank. Teng Emo did not dare to underestimate Gu Tingfang. Ever since he had lost to the unknown Gao Feng, he did not dare to underestimate any of the young warriors anymore. Shoo! Taking out his thin sword, Teng Emo did not attack right away. Instead, he stared at Gu Tingfang. Gu Tingfang's weapons were 2 light red short blades. They were 2 feet and 8 inches long, and the back of the blades was curved like a snake. The edges of the blades shone with a cold light, drawing out beams of light under the sunlight. Please teach me. Stomping on the ground, Gutingfang attacked first. Her whole body seemed to have become weightless as she traveled dozens of meters and appeared in front of Tung Mo within a second. Dang 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 dang. The sound of the dagger colliding with the thin sword was endless. Blazing sparks flew in all directions. It was exceptionally gorgeous and ostentatious, filled with the beauty of violence. Wild goose attack, Gutingfang yelled with a low voice. The two short blades were thrown out at an unimaginable speed, attacking towards Tung Mo, who was trying his best to defend. Chin. Countless sparks flew out, turning into two beautiful light bands that looked like the wings of wild geese. This was the horrifying power of the wild goose attack. Even the direction of the sparks would be affected. Tung Mo kept backing out. It seemed like he could not stop Gutingfang's attack at all. Tung Mo is going to lose. Although Zhu Mei and Qin Yulian had lost the right to participate in the second stage of the knockout competition, since they had participated in the first stage of the knockout competition, Zhu Mei and Qin Yulian could still watch from below the stage. They did not need to return to the audience seating. Yi Chen shook his head. Within 10 attacks, Gutingfang is going to lose. What do you mean? Zhu Mei and Qin Yulian looked at Yi Chen curiously. Yi Chen said, the first round of attack, the second round of attack, the third round of attack. This is the unchanging truth. Gutingfang's attacks seemed to be very aggressive, but she had used too much power. She did not save any power. She might be able to win against a weaker contestant, but Tung Mo's power is not weaker than Gutingfang's, and he is even more experienced than her. It would be impossible for her to win with one attack. Once she loses her momentum, it will be Tung Mo's time to fight back. At that time, it would be almost impossible for her to win. Zhu Mei asked, is it not a good thing to attack too aggressively? Not necessarily. What I mean is that Gutingfang's battle experience is a bit lacking. When facing an opponent at the same level, she should never let her opponent control the rhythm. Right now, the situation seems to be in Gutingfang's favor, but the rhythm is already in Tung Mo's hands. If I were her, I would change my fighting style before my momentum is exhausted, and I would disrupt the rhythm. That way, I would have a higher chance of winning. After all, she already had the upper hand. As soon as Yi Chen finished talking, the situation on the stage changed. Gutingfang, who had the upper hand since the beginning, was forced to step back. Just as Yi Chen had expected, the momentum could not keep rising without falling. When it reached a certain level, Gutingfang's momentum and blade finally started to fall back. Right at that moment, Tung Mo found a small flaw and launched a fierce counterattack. His thin sword, which was only as thick as 2 fingers, was like the autumn wind, like the flowing water. It was aimed at Gutingfang's weakness, completely disrupting her rhythm and mind. Gutingfang was in a hurry, and she had lost all of her previous elegance. Right now she just wanted to win. Unfortunately, Tung Mo would not let her do that. His thin sword maintained a stable rhythm, continuously stabbing out. In this way, he did not have the weakness of having too much momentum, and he could always suppress Gutingfang, who did not have enough time to adjust herself. Dang! With a horizontal slash, the short blade in Gutingfang's right hand flew out. I lost. Gutingfang stopped moving, and said with a bitter smile. Tung Mo was shocked. This time he had won by luck. In the situation where they were at the same power level, the battle experience had decided the result. If they were to compete again, he would not have any confidence to win. Luckily, he had won, and he would not have to worry about running into her in the next 9 rounds. Both of them left the stage, and the second battle of the first round began. Just like what you said. Yi Chen, it is such a waste that you did not become a martial skill master. Zhu Mei's face was full of admiration. There were masters in the Sky Cloud Martial School who taught them martial skills. Besides teaching them martial skills, they would also teach them battling experiences. However, those experiences were obviously not as advanced as Yi Chen's, because Yi Chen was always able to get to the point and come up with countermeasures. Yi Chen smiled. Some of the powerful warriors would teach their disciples, and some would not. Although his eyes and experience were very advanced, he might not be able to teach his disciple well. Teaching a disciple was not about holding his hand, but about letting his disciple learn by himself. In Yi Chen's world, there was a saying, "The master leads the way, but the training depends on the disciple himself." Of course, in a short period of time, Yi Chen could indeed teach someone a great battling experience. But in the long run, he would not be so sure anymore. After all, there was nothing that could be more practical than learning by oneself. Other people's knowledge would always be separated by a layer, and it would not be easy to break it. The battles of the seventh group were not too fast or too slow. In the next few battles, Bing Ling, Gu Qing, Tang Xiaoshan, and a couple of other powerful young warriors had all won their battles. Bing Ling was indeed the head disciple of the Ice Extreme Martial School, ranked 7th in the last Hidden Dragon rank. Her opponent had not even attacked before he was blown away by a punch. Gu Qing, as a warrior ranked 10th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, was also extremely powerful. He had blown away his opponent within a second. As for Tang Xiaoshan, besides Yi Chen, who was a hidden rank 9 martial institution martial genius, he was without a doubt the brightest one among all the new stars. He was only second to Tua Baku, and even Qian Yin and Gu Yuyan, who were ranked above him, could not compete with him. The martial institution he came from was only a normal rank 7 martial institution in the Ice Crystal Empire, which was not as powerful as the older rank 7 martial institutions, not to mention the top rank 7 martial institutions. But somehow he had appeared, a martial genius who was thought to be one of the most powerful martial institutions. He had the chance to compete for the top 10, and even if he did not make it, he would still be able to make it to the top 20. Without any effort, Tang Xiaoshan had won the battle. His powerful power had even made Gu Qing, who was ranked 10th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, frown. The 8th battle of the first round, Yi Chen against Gao Feng. After a couple of powerful warriors had appeared, it was Yi Chen's turn. His opponent was the popular warrior from the third group, Gao Feng. Even Tang Yemo was not his opponent. Tang Xiaoshan was very confident in his observation. He said to the few people next to him, "Gao Feng is still not quite there yet. He has about 30% chance of winning. But if Yi Chen wants to win against him, it would not be that easy." Chapter 252. Hearing his own name, Gao Feng jumped onto the battling platform with a serious face. Yi Chen did not hesitate. He tapped his foot on the ground and appeared on the battling platform almost at the same time as Gao Feng. The two stood 50 meters apart. "You are very powerful, but if you want to win 1 point from me, it will not be that easy." With his right hand holding onto his sword handle, Gao Feng said word by word. Yi Chen smiled lightly. "It will be easy." Gao Feng frowned. According to his estimation, he should have 30% chance of beating Yi Chen, and it was not like he did not have any chance at all. But somehow, seeing that calm expression on Yi Chen's face, he did not have any confidence at all. For the first time, he felt like he did not know where to start. Shocked, Gao Feng thought to himself, perhaps he still has more power? On the judge's seat, the Group 3 judge and the Group 12 judge sat together. The Group 12 judge said, "Gao Feng is a good seed. I can tell that he has been hiding part of his power. His sword intent should be close to completion." The Group 3 judge nodded. "What I am curious about is that up until now, Yi Chen has not shown any trace of sword intent. I guess he has not learned it yet. Although the sword intent is a benchmark for sword artists, not every powerful sword artist has it. So who can tell for sure?" "You are right. But it is a pity. If he had the sword intent, it would not be impossible for him to get into the top 10. The Group 3 judge had been watching Yi Chen win every single battle, so he was more or less looking forward to it. He hoped that Yi Chen would be able to shine, and that there would be more to watch. But of course, he knew that the sword intent was not that easy to learn. It was related to the comprehensive ability, but it was also related to the talent in the sword arts. But it did not mean that just because one was talented in the sword arts, they would be able to learn the sword intent. There were a lot of astral-reaching realm sword artists in this true spirit continent who had not learned the sword intent yet. And some of the warriors who did not have the comprehensive ability and the sword art talent, and did not have a high cultivation, had somehow learned the sword intent. There were some rumors about the sword intent in the true spirit continent. It was said that in order to learn the sword intent, one would need to have a pure spirit or reach the Sea of Souls realm. These two conditions were the easiest to learn the sword intent. The rest would depend on the situation, since there would always be exceptions. Senior Brother Gao, if you defeat him, it will be your 11th consecutive victory. At this moment, a young woman's voice came from the audience stands. Gao Feng's expression changed. He looked over and shook his head with a bitter smile. Defeating Yi Chen was easier said than done. He could only hope that Yi Chen's strength was not beyond his imagination. The Star Scar sword appeared in his left hand. Without taking it out of the scabbard, Yi Chen said, "It seems like your sister disciple really wants you to win. Unfortunately, I will not go easy on you. You better not go easy on me. I will beat you fair and square." Gao Feng clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The person who spoke was his junior martial sister, who was also his childhood sweetheart. This time, he had promised her that he would definitely achieve 12 consecutive victories to commemorate the 12 years they had known each other. Chin. Gao Feng's sword was taken out of the scabbard. The sword light flashed once, and an invisible sword pressure attacked toward Yi Chen. The calm air suddenly started to ripple like water, being pulled to an extreme. Pop! The sword pressure and the watery air had been cut open. Yi Chen's sword was only halfway out of the scabbard. Such a powerful sword aura! The judges of the 3rd and 12th group were shocked. Right then, Yi Chen seemed to be a little bit more serious. Over at the 2nd group, the head disciple of the Heartless Martial School, Li Daoxian, had accidentally noticed this. He shook his head lightly, knowing that it would be useless to not learn the sword intent. Sword explosion. The sword pressure was only the beginning. Gao Feng performed the ace attack that he had used to beat Tung Mo. He threw out a sword attack, bringing up the sword wind and the sword qi. Pop! Another crisp sound was heard. The sword wind and the sword qi had been shattered, and the tip of Yi Chen's sword was finally revealed from the scabbard. The sword light that was as deep as the stars shone. Impressive! Gao Feng took a deep breath. He had never seen a sword artist at the same level as him, who could break his ultimate move with only sword momentum. However, this was just the beginning. He was a sword artist who had comprehended the sword intent. Unfortunately, 2 months ago, his sword intent had officially entered the entry level. Pushing his sword intent, Gao Feng's sword aura was extremely condensed. It was indestructible, and nothing could shake it, including Yi Chen's sword aura. In the next second, Gao Feng suddenly appeared in front of Yi Chen. The sound of metal clashing and the burning sparks spread out in all directions. Below the stage, in the spectator seats, many of the younger generation and the spectating martial artists could only see 2 blurry figures, one blue and one green, crisscrossing and flashing. The most eye-catching thing was the sword light that was everywhere. Every single one of them was breathtaking. After which, they saw numerous shallow scratches appearing on the stage. The scratches were incomparably sharp. With a glance, even one's mind would be pierced through. Judging from the current situation, Gao Feng and Yi Chen's power were almost the same. One had learned the entry-level sword intent, while the other had unparalleled sword art skills. His sword aura was horrifying. On the huge battling platform, the long sword in Gao Feng's hand kept moving. The sword light was extremely sharp, and every time he waved it out, it would be extremely threatening. Sometimes, when his Zhen Qi was extremely powerful, before the tip of the sword even reached its target, there would already be burning sparks shooting out between the two, which was quite shocking. Compared to Gao Feng's unpredictable sword light, Yi Chen was like an enhanced version of his opponent. His Star Scar sword was unrestrained and untraceable. Every time he attacked, it was flawless, which was out of everyone's expectation. It made Gao Feng unable to gain the upper hand even with his sword intent. Of course, Yi Chen did not dare to be careless. Without using his sword intent, he would still have to use the poetic perspective of his sky-shattering clouds. He did not plan to use the poetic perspective of his Lone Peak kill yet. It was not because the poetic perspective of the Lone Peak kill was not as powerful as the sky-shattering clouds. In fact, Once the poetic perspective of the Lone Peak kill was completed, it would be even more powerful than the sky-shattering clouds. However, without the help of the sword intent, the poetic perspective of the Lone Peak kill would not be able to reach its peak. The poetic perspective of the Lone Peak 13 swords was the origin of Yi Chen's sword intent. After it had been completely combined, the poetic perspective of the Lone Peak kill would also be closely related to the sword intent. If he did not have the sword intent, Yi Chen would not be able to completely combine the Lone Peak 13 swords and create his most powerful sword movement, the completed Lone Peak kill. As for the sky-shattering clouds, it would also need the sword intent to reach its peak. However, it was less dependent on the sword intent than the Lone Peak kill. Plus, the sky-shattering clouds was a frontal attack, while the Lone Peak kill was different. The poetic perspective of the Lone Peak kill was the essence of the Lone Peak kill. Without the poetic perspective of the Lone Peak kill, the power of the Lone Peak kill would drop by at least one level. On the stage, human figures flashed everywhere. The sword light flew everywhere. Beams of sword chi occasionally leaked out from the affected area, creating ripples on the dark blue light wall. How is this possible? I am older than him, and I have also learned the sword intent. How could I not have the upper hand at all? Just how powerful is his sword art? The long sword in his hand was waved out like lightning. Gao Feng was getting more and more shocked. Towards the end, he had already been convinced by Yi Chen's sword art. As the battle entered the most intense stage, Gao Feng's face looked extremely serious. His eyes had almost stopped blinking. Together with his mental power, he watched every single movement of Yi Chen, hoping to find a tiny flaw. As long as there was a tiny flaw, he would be able to fight back aggressively. After a while, Gao Feng finally gave up. Yi Chen did not have a single flaw. At least for him, Yi Chen was flawless. Even if there was a flaw, that kind of weird flaw could have been purposely made by his opponent to disrupt his rhythm. Taking a step back, Gao Feng held his sword with both of his hands and threw out a sword attack. Ghost Wind. Since there is no flaw, then I will create one myself. Gao Feng had used all of his power for this sword attack. His sword intent had been completely condensed into the sword wind. A ghostly cry was heard. That horrifying sword wind turned into sword chi from time to time, then disappeared from time to time. The sword intent is not bad, but the poetic perspective of the sword art is not that high. The reason why Yi Chen was able to fight on par with his opponent without using his sword intent was not only because of his powerful sword techniques and sword aura, but also because of his powerful poetic perspective. With the two combined, even Gao Feng, who had learned the entry-level sword intent, could not force him to use his sword intent. As Gao Feng took a step back, Yi Chen also took a step back. He held up his Star Scar sword with both of his hands and threw it down vertically with an aura of thunder and lightning. Sky-shattering clouds. Swoosh, swoosh, there was a light sparkle in the air. Gao Feng's sword wind had been shattered immediately, splashing everywhere like water. Meanwhile, Yi Chen's attack had disappeared as well. Gao Feng's expression changed suddenly as his eyes looked determined. I was planning to save this attack for the last moment. But now, you have what it takes for me to use it. His entry-level sword intent spread out, surrounding Gao Feng. He held the sword handle tightly with his right hand, while his left hand was on the end of the handle. In the next second, an extremely sharp sword aura exploded. Together with his slim body, his whole body looked like a great sword that was about to be taken out of its scabbard. This Gao Feng is not bad. I did not expect that he would have an even more powerful ace attack. Yi Chen is going to lose. Tang Xiaoshan crossed his arms in front of his chest, a smile appearing on his face. Facing Gao Feng, who had an extremely sharp aura, Yi Chen shook his head. Sword intent. I know it too. I was planning to fight more. As for Gao Feng's sword art skills, Yi Chen was a bit impressed. It was just like how Wei Renjie felt about Lynch. Otherwise, there would be no need for him to waste so much time. He could have taken care of his opponent as soon as he got on the stage. With his power, it was not impossible. What? He has also learned the sword intent? The judge of the third group was shocked. A horrifying sharp intent burst out. And Yi Chen's aura was completely different from before. His blue robe danced in the air, and an invisible sword aura, that had been infused with sword intent, had pierced through Gao Feng's sword aura, without any mercy. Gao Feng's sword aura, which had been rising up, seemed like a child's joke under this attack. It was like a balloon that had been deflated, and it started to deflate. Gao Feng was terrified. Is this his real power? Only Gao Feng himself knew how powerful the ace attack that he had prepared so carefully was. As long as he threw out this sword attack, even those who were slightly more powerful than him would have a hard time. However, he had not expected that Yi Chen had not only learned the sword intent, but also used it to a higher level than him. A sword light flashed across in the air. Gao Feng did not even have the chance to attack. His Zhenqi layer had been shattered, and he was thrown into the dark blue light wall. Chapter 253. One sword attack. Gao Feng had lost. Everyone who was watching the battle was shocked. The whole place was dead silent. Before this, no one would have thought that Yi Chen had hidden his sword intent, which was the pride of a sword artist. He had only used his sword art to compete on the stage, and beat all the top young warriors, winning 11 battles in a row. What was even more unexpected was that once Yi Chen had released his sword intent, Gao Feng did not even have the chance to attack. He had lost right away, and in such a straightforward manner. If Gao Feng were only a normal young warrior, people would not be so shocked. But in the first stage of the competition, he had beaten Tung Mo, who was ranked 19 in the last Hidden Dragon rank. And just like Yi Chen, he had won all the battles. Therefore, no matter how you looked at it, Gao Feng was not a normal warrior. He was definitely one of the top warriors among the young generation. However, a powerful warrior like him could not even handle one attack from Yi Chen. The huge contrast had shocked a lot of people. Amateurs would just watch for fun, but the experts would see for themselves. Most of the clasping Yuan realm warriors only knew that Yi Chen had the sword intent, but they did not know what had happened in that second. However, the powerful clasping Yuan realm warriors and astral reaching realm warriors had seen some of the details. For example, Yi Chen's sword intent flashed once and then disappeared, and it was hard to tell exactly what kind of realm he had reached. Also, right now they could finally feel how fast Yi Chen's sword was. It had already surpassed the reaction speed of warriors at the same cultivation level. Most importantly, the second he threw out his sword, Yi Chen had shown the elegance of a sword artist. Not only did his sword art move as he wished, but it was also very fast. So impressive. Is this the power of the fifth in the top 10 new stars? Why do I feel like he could be the second? Some of the warriors who were watching the battle could not help but say. Someone next to him said, I have the same feeling. Gao Feng is the 9th in the top 10 new stars after all. But he still could not handle one serious sword attack from Yi Chen. It is not certain whether he is serious or not. Haven't you noticed? Until now, has Yi Chen tried his best? Only Gao Feng was able to force out his sword intent. This year's Hidden Dragon rank competitions are indeed full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Before there were top young warriors like Xikong Sheng, and now there are the top 10 new stars. All of them are hiding their powers. Before the most crucial moment, no one would know what kind of realm they have reached. Now that's hot-blooded. What's the point of a match that can be seen through at a glance? Haha, this is really exciting. I really want to see who among the younger generation can laugh until the end, and who can be ranked in the top 10. There were way too many people who were paying attention to this battle, since there were only 6 groups left. It was obvious which group would be more interesting to watch. The battle between Yi Chen and Gao Feng was very exciting. In the beginning, it was clear that they were evenly matched, but in the end, the situation changed drastically. First, Gao Feng was forced to use his ace attack, and his momentum increased drastically. It seemed like he was going to win, but who would have thought that Yi Chen would have even more attacks? Which exposed the fact that he had comprehended the sword intent and killed Gao Feng with one sword attack, showing off the power of a sword artist. Such an exciting battle had made people's blood boil. Their faces turned red, and they could not help but want to scream out loud. The Group 12 judge froze for a while before he said, A real sword artist needs both a powerful attacking power and the power to kill with one attack. This kid has both, which is very rare. The Group 3 judge nodded. It is easy to become a warrior, but it is hard to become a sword artist. Most people only have the talent to be a sword artist, but not the qualities that a sword artist should have. As astral-reaching realm warriors, the two had seen a lot of powerful sword artists. They knew how hard it was to deal with a sword artist, since they did not seem to have too big of a weakness, because they were experts in finding weaknesses. That sword attack of Yi Chen seemed to be very fast and casual, but it had actually landed on Gao Feng's weakest spot, which gave Gao Feng no chance to fight back at all. A light flashed through the head disciple of the Heartless Martial School, Li Daoxian. Yi Chen, who had learned the sword intent, had piqued his interest. As for how long this interest could last, it would depend on how powerful Yi Chen really was. If it was only this much, then it would only take 3 sword attacks to finish him off. Xikong Sheng and the other top young warriors did not have any expression on their faces. The power that Yi Chen had shown so far was nothing special to them. Reaching their level, the gap between them was huge. If one's power could not be ranked in the top 5 or top 10, then he would not even be worth their attention. There are too many people who have not shown their real power yet. He is only a clown. The head disciple of the Skyfall Martial School, Lin Yun, sneered. The head disciple of the Sky Demon Martial School, Mo Yen, used his Sky Demon eyes. A dark red light flashed through his eyes as he said lightly, "He will not be in the top 10. Morong Qingqing frowned slightly. This head disciple of hers looked very calm and collected on the surface, but he was actually very prideful. As one of the top 2 martial arts of the Sky Flying Demon Martial School, the Sky Demon art was indeed very powerful. The Sky Demon eyes that came with it could see through a person's aura. However, martial arts were not omnipotent. Moreover, his Sky Demon art was only at the 10th realm, so how could he see through a person's power? On the battling platform, putting his Star Scar sword back into its scabbard, Yi Chen said thank you, before flying off the platform. Gao Feng covered his chest with his left hand, but he was not hurt at all. He knew that Yi Chen had held back. Yi Chen's control of his power was just like his sword art, which had already reached the realm of being able to do whatever he wanted. It was not a shame to lose to him. Plus, he had learned something from this battle. Getting off the platform, Gao Feng sent a Zhenqi message to his sister disciple. "Sorry, I have lost. It's okay. He is just too powerful. I just want to watch your battle. I don't care about anything else." "You are right. He is indeed too powerful. I think his power is even more powerful than what everyone thinks," Gao Feng said in shock. Unfortunately, besides his sister disciple, no one else heard what he said. Pap. The iron ball in his hand had been crushed. Tang Xiaoshan's face froze. He had just said that Yi Chen was going to lose, but the result was completely different from what he had expected. He had been humiliated. His power is not bad. It seems like I have underestimated him. Tang Xiaoshan twitched the corner of his mouth. The battle continued. The next contestant was the 3rd disciple of the Sky Demon Martial School, Wu Liangyu. His opponent was the young warrior, who had made it to the next round with all his wins. The two had exchanged 3 rounds of attacks. Wu Liangyu won. The Sky Demon Martial School is slightly more powerful in terms of the number of top disciples. In addition to the top 3 disciples, there are also 3 disciples who have made it to the 2nd stage of the knockout competition, adding up to 6 disciples. As for the other 6th grade sects, the most disciples who have made it to the 2nd stage of the knockout competition are no more than 5, and at least 3. Of course, the Sky Demon Martial School has the advantage in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality, no one can compete with the Floating Mountain Martial School. There is no other way. The Floating Mountain Martial School has Xikong Sheng. Besides the Fire Spirit Prince, no one else would be able to compete with him. Not necessarily. That Lin Yun's chi is not weaker than the Fire Spirit Prince's. In some aspects, he is even more powerful. The fight for the first place should be between the 3 of them. Not necessarily. Tuobaku should be counted in. The last hidden dragon ranked 9 young warrior had been blown away by him with only 1 punch. Is this kind of power not enough to compete for the top 3? Although Wu Liangyu had performed very well, unfortunately, with Yi Chen's performance in front of him, Wu Liangyu was definitely not as good as him. Therefore, with his status, the crowd started to discuss about the battle between the top young warriors and the Sky Demon Martial School. They all had their own opinions. Yi Chen and Su Jing stood together. Next to them were Zhu Mei and Qin Yulian, who had lost the right to compete. Qin Yulian watched the matches of each group and sighed. This year's competition is too intense. Many of the contestants from last year's ranking have been eliminated. I wonder how many of the contestants from last year's ranking will remain after the second round of elimination. Zhu Mei said. Looking at the current situation, at least 30 to 40% will be eliminated. 30 or 40% was more than 20 people. This was a shocking number. Yi Chen did not say anything. The first stage of the competition had indeed eliminated a lot of contestants from the last Hidden Dragon rank, such as Lin Yu, who was ranked 70th, Zhuang Fei, who was ranked 68th, Wei Dongxi, who was ranked 66th, Kai Yueao, who was ranked 61st, Lu Zhao, who was ranked 61st, and Yuan Hingying, who was ranked 59th. These were all powerful warriors from the Hidden Dragon rank that Yi Chen had met in the scorching ancient desert. But now, they had all been eliminated. These were only the Hidden Dragon rank warriors from the 9 nations, including the Windy Nation. Including the other nations, up until now, there had already been 20 people who had been eliminated. Therefore, the 30 to 40% that Zhu Mei said was still an understatement. After the second round of elimination, the total number of people who had been eliminated from the last Hidden Dragon rank should be around 25 to 30. Of course, there were also a couple of people from the 9 nations who had not been eliminated, such as Emma Wuxia, who was ranked 54th, and Xue Hen, who was ranked 57th. The two of them used to be the top warriors in the Heaven Dream Ancient region, but unfortunately, when they arrived at the Hidden Dragon Ancient City, they had barely managed to struggle on the edge of being eliminated. Whether they could make it to the next round or not would depend on the luck that they usually did not care about. The new generation had replaced the old generation. How many old warriors had been eliminated meant how many new young warriors had been replaced. Not to mention the other nations. Just the Windy Nation alone had Yi Chen, Su Jing and Lynch, which was 3 times better than the last Hidden Dragon rank, when only Zhuang Fei was in the Hidden Dragon rank. Therefore, the Windy Nation had not only not declined, but had actually become a lot stronger. The 12th battle of the second group had begun, and the contestant was indeed Su Jing. Seeing that Su Jing had easily suppressed her opponent, Yi Chen had realized something. He thought to himself, it turns out that Su Jing's martial arts and martial skills have not been trained to a very high level. It seems that she has not trained for a long time after all. Give her 1 more year, and she might be able to compete for the top 10. Yi Chen had figured out that Su Jing had changed her martial art. If he had guessed it right, Su Jing had changed her martial art after she came back from the Heaven Dream Ancient region, and it was an extremely high-level body-strengthening martial art. However, it was only a year before the Hidden Dragon rank competition, and body-strengthening martial arts were extremely hard to train. It would be impossible for Su Jing to train her body-strengthening martial art to a very high level within a year, which was her weakness. After all, those old generation young warriors had all trained a martial art for 3 years or even more. If Su Jing had 3 years to train, even Yi Chen could not be sure what level Su Jing could reach, because Su Jing's current power was already horrifying. With a thunderous punch, she had broken her opponent's protective Zhenqi layer. Su Jing had easily won the first point in the second stage of the competition. Yi Chen chuckled as he turned his attention to his own group. The second round of the competition was about to begin. Who would be his opponent? Chapter 254. The first battle of the second round, Bing Ling against Gu Qing. As the judge's voice faded, the huge audience suddenly quieted down. Warriors who had the right to participate in the second round of the competition were not weak warriors. If the Hidden Dragon rank could be expanded to 144 people, Then all of the contestants in the audience would be on the rank. They would all be the elites of the elites, the top warriors of the young generation. And Bing Ling and Gu Qing were undoubtedly the top warriors. Bing Ling, the head disciple of the Ice Extreme Martial School, a rank 6 institution in the Ice Crystal Empire. She was ranked 7th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, and was one of the most popular contestants for the top 5 this time. Gu Qing, the head disciple of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, a rank 7 institution in the Grey Mystery Nation. He was ranked 10th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, and was one of the most popular contestants for the top 10 this time. Judging from the surface, Gu Qing was obviously slightly weaker than Bing Ling. His martial institution was 1 rank lower, and his Hidden Dragon rank was 3 ranks lower. Do not underestimate the rank of a martial institution. The higher the rank of a martial institution, the higher the rank of the martial arts they collected would be. If the rank of a martial institution was low, then the rank of the martial arts would naturally be low. There were very few rank 7 martial institutions in the South Ridra region that could compete with rank 6 martial institutions. However, coincidentally, the Clear Cloud Pavilion was one of those rare rank 7 martial institutions. They did not lack high-rank Earth Realm martial arts, and they even had a top-rank Earth Realm martial art. With this top-rank Earth Realm martial art, the Clear Cloud Pavilion was able to sit firmly as the number 1 rank 7 martial institution in the Black Dragon Empire. If the leader of the Blue Cloud Pavilion was not stupid, he would have taught the top-rank Earth Realm martial art to Gu Qing for sure. In order for a rank 7 institution to become a rank 6 institution, besides having enough top battling power, they would also need a Sea of Souls Realm warrior. With Gu Qing's talent and comprehensive ability, he would have a great chance to become a Sea of Souls Realm warrior in the future. The two would meet in the first battle of the second round, which would definitely be the highlight of the battle. In everyone's eyes, no matter how powerful Bing Ling was, she would not be able to beat Gu Qing with only a couple of attacks. And Gu Qing would not just sit there and let Bing Ling beat him easily. He would definitely try his best to beat her, which would be a great treat for the audience. Who do you think will win this battle? Some people could not help but ask their friends. Isn't that obvious? Of course it's Bing Ling. It's easy to surpass the younger generation that's ranked at the bottom, but to be able to enter the top 10, their talent and comprehension are all top-notch. Coupled with the top-notch martial arts, it's almost impossible to surpass them. Not necessarily. Gu Qing was ranked 10th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, only 3 ranks behind Bing Ling. His martial arts are almost the same as well. It would not be that easy for Bing Ling to beat him. It might be very hard. 3 years can bring the Hidden Dragon rank competition to its peak. There must be a lot of changes happening to Bing Ling and Gu Qing. No matter how we argue, it will be useless. Let's just wait and see. While everyone was talking, Bing Ling and Gu Qing went on stage. It's been 3 years, but you're still as cold as ever. Gu Qing smiled faintly, and a dark blue iron rod appeared in his hand. The iron rod was 4 feet and 8 inches long, and as thick as a child's arm. Its surface was engraved with circles of simple spiral patterns. And in the center of the spiral patterns, there was a dot. 3 spiral patterns made up 3 dots, making the iron rod look heavy and a little strange. Bing Ling said, "Bring out all of your power. Otherwise, you will lose to me just like last time." "Of course, I will use all of my power." The two exchanged a few words, then stopped talking and stared at each other. The first one to attack was Gu Qing. His body flashed, and when he was still 10 meters away from Bing Ling, the iron stick in his hand smashed down. The heavy air-breaking sound was like a mountain, giving people the feeling that it was not an iron stick, but a huge mountain, a sky-reaching stone pillar. Bing Ling stood where she was without moving at all. Only when the iron stick was smashed down did she throw out a punch. Bang! Ice shards scattered all over the sky. Gu Qing's heavy and powerful strike, which was enough to split a mountain, was actually broken by Bing Ling with her bare hands. Not only that, the dark blue iron stick was covered in a layer of frost, emitting cold air. Amazing! Not only does this punch contain a large amount of Jin Qi, it also has the power to shatter ice. Yichen recalled the scene just now. When Gu Qing's iron stick smashed down, Bing Ling's right fist had already gathered a large amount of ice Jin Qi. When the two collided, the ice Jin Qi turned into solid ice and exploded, easily shattering the mountain-like power. Su Jing said, "This should be one of the secret skills of the Ice Extreme Martial School, Ice-Breaking Fist." On the stage, Gu Qing's eyes looked serious. Jin Qi flowed through his palm and into the iron stick. Suddenly, the 3 round dots on the iron stick lit up, and the blue halo rippled, shattering the ice. "Take my attack, Blue Cloud 9 consecutive strikes." Gu Qing yelled out as his body flashed randomly. Within the space of dozens of meters, his figure was everywhere, and it was impossible to tell which one was real and which one was fake. Immediately after, pieces of ice shards suddenly exploded around Bing Ling's body. It turned out that Gu Qing had already arrived at Bing Ling's side and kept smashing down with his iron stick. Unfortunately, Bing Ling's defense was just as terrifying as her fist art. Before the iron stick that was covered by the blue halo could even land, it had already been weakened by layers of ice Jin Qi. Ice shards flew everywhere, looking extremely beautiful, but also extremely shocking. 1 hit, 2 hits, 7 hits, 8 hits. It was not until the 9th hit that Gu Qing suddenly jumped up and split into 3. 3 Gu Qings held the iron stick and smashed it onto Bing Ling's protective Jin Qi. Under Gu Qing's storm-like attacks, it was not easy for Bing Ling to block out the first 8 hits. However, the 9th hit had thrown away all the techniques, and all it had was an unparalleled power and momentum. With 1 hit, all the air had been sucked out, and all that was left was a vacuum. Crossing her arms in front of her chest, pieces of oval-shaped ice frost appeared in front of Bing Ling's body. Boom! The ice frost exploded, and Bing Ling backed out 9 steps. With every step, she would leave behind some ice shards on the stage. Kalala! Seeing that Gu Qing had the upper hand, a lot of people did not even have the time to catch their breath before Bing Ling's counterattack came. This attack was even more violent than Gu Qing's 9th hit. With 1 punch, the water Yuan Qi in the air had been sucked over, and was thrown out along with the extremely cold fist power. His protective Jin Qi was frozen, and Gu Qing's whole body was sealed in a few meters wide ice block. He was smashed heavily onto the dark blue light wall. The ice block shattered, and Gu Qing's black hair danced in the air as he yelled, "If you can take this hit, I will admit defeat. Bring it on." Bing Ling still looked cold. Her aura kept increasing, and a bright blue qi flow exploded around Gu Qing's body. The blue qi flow spun around Gu Qing once, and then dove into the iron stick. The next second, the iron stick vibrated intensely, and the blue light started to change, eventually forming into a stone pillar shadow. It was 3 meters long and half a meter thick. Blue stone great art. Lose. After throwing out that stick attack, half of the battling platform had changed color. The powerful and heavy stone column shadow was like a real sky-piercing stone column, ferociously smashing towards Bing Ling, who was dozens of meters away. That kind of power that could crush a mountain and crack a river was unimaginable. It was hard to connect it with the handsome Gu Qing. Right then someone yelled out, "It is the blue stone great art of the Blue Cloud Martial School." I heard that an inner master of the Blue Cloud Martial School had killed 2 warriors at the same cultivation level with 1 hammer attack, and was famous in the South Ridra region for its heavy power. People who trained the blue stone great art would usually choose heavy weapons, like iron sticks or hammers. Only then would they be able to bring out the full power of the blue stone great art. Gu Qing's power is indeed not to be underestimated. I wonder how Bing Ling is going to handle it. Bing Ling should have some ace attacks as well, right? Yichen squeezed his eyes. Bing Ling's ace attack was about to come. All of the water Yuan Qi on the battling stage suddenly gathered towards that elegant fist. Ice break. Bing Ling groaned as she threw out a punch with a horrifying aura. At that moment, a lot of people felt like they could hear the sound of ice breaking. Boom! The battling stage shook a little, and the air twisted. That blue-colored qi flow and freezing frost filled up everyone's vision. If it were not for the dark blue light wall, it would have spread out in all directions. Pooh! The stone column shadow had been shattered, and Gu Qing's hand, which was holding the iron stick, had cracked open. His chest felt like it had been struck by lightning, as he puked out a mouthful of blood while his body was blown away. Bingling was not feeling any better either. Her face was slightly pale, and there was blood dripping down from the corner of her mouth. The result of the exchange of ace attacks was that Gu Qing had lost completely, while Bingling was slightly wounded. Bingling wins. The judge came back to his senses and announced the result immediately. It was not the time to be amazed by the two's power. In the competitions of the Hidden Dragon rank, even the slightest injury could affect the rest of the battles. Even the leaders of the Ice Extreme Martial School and the Blue Cloud Martial School looked very anxious. Bingling had just gotten off the stage when she was taken away by the leader of the Ice Extreme Martial School. Without any surprises, she would be using her Seas of Soul's realm cultivation to heal Bingling, so that she would be able to recover to her peak condition when she encountered a powerful opponent. That way, she would be able to avoid further injuries and possibly losing the competition. The people from the Blue Cloud Martial School were not slow either. They brought Gu Qing, who looked very tired, into the training room nearby. Although the Blue Cloud Martial School did not have any Seas of Soul's realm warriors, Gu Qing's injury was not that serious. With the help of a couple of astral-reaching realm warriors, plus the top healing medicine, it would not be a big problem for him to recover within a short period of time. Compared to that, the ranking of the Hidden Dragon rank was what they cared about. The departure of the two did not cool down the atmosphere. Instead, it got even more heated. I did not expect Gu Qing to be able to fight with Bingling like that. It would be hard for those young warriors to surpass him. Yeah, Bingling could be counted as one of the top young warriors. There were not many people who could injure her. Although it was just a small injury, if there were no competitions, she would not need to rest at all. She would be able to recover completely after a couple of days of rest. In the Group 5, the top 4 are almost out. They are Bingling, Gu Qing, Tang Xiaoshan and Yi Chen. I wonder if the 4 of them will run into each other. If they do, it would be another intense battle. Everyone was full of anticipation for the upcoming battles. Of course, it was not just the Group 5. The other groups' battles would be exciting as well. After all, there were only 24 people in each group, and in 10 rounds of battles, they would run into 10 people. There would be scenes where the top 2 would run into each other. When Bingling and Gu Qing were battling, Lynch was also battling. Because the 2 of them were not as eye-catching as the 2 on the other side, not many people were paying attention to them. Right now the battle had ended and Lynch had won. Time passed slowly, and 5 battles had already ended in the Group 5. The 6th battle was Yi Chen's, and his opponent was the 3rd disciple of the Sky Demon Martial School, Wu Liangyu. Everyone who had not calmed down yet suddenly became excited. On the surface, Wu Liangyu was indeed not as powerful as Yi Chen, but he would not be weaker than Gao Feng, and might even be more powerful. What they were looking forward to was how would Yi Chen beat Wu Liangyu. Chapter 255. A huge pair of black wings appeared on his back, as Wu Liangyu floated above the battling platform, looking down at Yi Chen. As long as I can keep the distance, then there is nothing to be afraid of. Being considered weaker than Yi Chen, and many of the people before him, was a huge blow to Wu Liangyu. He did not know how the others thought about him, but in his opinion, the reason why Yi Chen could beat Yi Chen with one sword attack was because of the close distance and the sudden attack. Plus, Yi Chen had just finished preparing his most powerful ace attack, so he was a bit relaxed. That was why Yi Chen was able to take advantage of him. Right now, he was in the air, maintaining 100 meters distance from his opponent. As long as Yi Chen made any move, with the speed-increasing effect of the Black Crow Great Art, Wu Liangyu would have enough time to react, and would not let Yi Chen get close to him easily. On the first row of the audience seating, the Black Crow Man nodded satisfyingly. What Wu Liangyu did was the best way to deal with Yi Chen. Only with enough distance would he be able to maximize the advantage of the Black Crow Great Art. As for Wu Liangyu trying to increase the distance, Yi Chen did not care too much about it. The gap between them was not just a little bit, so it did not matter if there was a distance or not. Death Tornado! Wu Liangyu attacked. As the third disciple of the Sky Demon Martial School, ranked 25 in the last Hidden Dragon rank, his power was still very powerful. Both of his wings flapped intensely, and the pitch-black light shone brightly. Countless arc-shaped cutting waves accumulated in the air, forming into a tornado-like black light wave, attacking towards Yi Chen. It covered the whole sky, making it impossible for Yi Chen to dodge. Swoosh! A weird sound of cloth tearing was heard. A scratch appeared in the sky full of black light, expanding quickly. Yi Chen walked out from it with his sword in his hand, completely unharmed. Wu Liangyu's pupil shrank. He subconsciously flapped his wings, backing out quickly. Shoo! A beam of sword chi brushed past his protective Jin Qi layer and landed heavily on the dark blue light wall, bringing up circles of patterns. I will see how you are going to break it this time. Death Storm! The wings on his back combined with the two scimitars in his hands. The Death Tornado had been upgraded into an even more horrifying Death Tornado. Countless arc-shaped chopping waves interweaved together, attacking towards Yi Chen with a destructive aura. Wu Liangyu believed that under this attack, as long as Yi Chen showed even the slightest flaw, he would be badly wounded. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Yi Chen took 3 steps forward, then lifted up his Star Scar sword and attacked back. Whoosh! There were light blue electric sparks flashing in the midair, and the black tornado was split in half like a curtain being pulled open. Wu Liangyu, who was behind the curtain, did not even have the time to react before his protective Jin Qi layer was sliced open. He flipped 4 times in the air before sliding down from the dark blue light wall. This sword attack contains both the poetic perspectives of cloud and thunder. How is this possible? An inner master of the Sky Demon Martial School said with surprise. Before, although Yi Chen had used his sky-shattering cloud's poetic perspective a couple of times, he was still not eye-catching at that time. Plus, he was still holding back his poetic perspective. Therefore, not many people had noticed it. But now that his opponent was Wu Liangyu, it had naturally attracted everyone's attention. Another inner master sighed. Although poetic perspectives are not as hard to understand as sword intent, it is still a test of one's comprehensive ability and talent. Compared to him, Liangyu is still way too weak. The Crowman forced a smile. He could not help but look at Yi Chen a couple more times. He had seen Yi Chen 3 times, and his power had been completely different each time. To be honest, he had never seen such a horrifying speed of improvement from any young man before. Even Sikong Sheng was not as fast as him. What a little monster! The Crowman's love for talent was aroused. Yi Chen's win was not out of the judge's expectation, so he announced the result immediately. They all more or less had the same thought. They wanted to see how long Yi Chen's winning streak would last, and whether it would stop at the second stage of the competition. It was definitely a crazy idea. 12 wins in a row. Why do I feel like watching Yi Chen's battles is so exciting? It seems to give people a sense of anticipation, and I can't wait for him to keep winning. Me too. I was just wondering. Logically speaking, the power he has shown so far has not reached the top 10 yet. Maybe it is because he knows everything about the others, but only he is a stranger. He belongs to the real nameless warriors. In the martial world, a nameless warrior beating a powerful warrior, who had been famous for a long time, would be the most sensational and widely spread news. Someone pointed out the key point. The others heard him, and were all enlightened. Indeed, among the young generation, Yi Chen was indeed a nameless warrior, and he had been hiding his power all this time. He was not like Tua Baku, who had shown his power. That was enough to compete with the top young warriors from the very beginning. It had reduced the expectation that the crowd had for him, since he only had a few opponents, and the battles before were obviously just child's play. Wah! Wu Liangyu, who had just crawled up from the ground, puked out a mouthful of blood. His chest felt a lot better, but his mind was not. He remembered that when he met Yi Chen in the Gold Tripod City, his power was almost the same as his. The reason why he was able to escape from the Wind Wolf's attack was not because of the difference in power, but because of the difference in perception, which allowed him to avoid the Wind Wolf's sound wave attack in advance. It had only been a couple of months, and Yi Chun had not only reached the late clasping Yuan realm, but his attacking power had also increased drastically. It was like 1,000 miles in a day, leaving Yi Chun, who had only made some progress, far behind him. Right now Yi Chun was thinking, how did Yi Chun train? Is the gap between us really that big? His 3 years of hard work could not even compare to Yi Chun's 1 year, or even a couple of months. All of a sudden, Wu Liangyu looked depressed. Before, he was so arrogant because he was confident that he had made more progress than the others. But now, it seemed like it was not the case at all. The people in front of him had made more progress than him, and the people behind him had also caught up with him, which put him in an awkward situation. Could it be that he, Wu Liangyu, could not be one of the top martial geniuses? Countless thoughts flashed through his mind, and all of Wu Liangyu's ambition had disappeared. He felt that he was a bit ridiculous before, like a clown. Yi Chun did not know what Wu Liangyu was thinking, and he did not care. But if it happened to him, he would not be as negative as Wu Liangyu. A real powerful warrior would first have to have a strong will and a strong heart. Even if the sky fell and the ground cracked, even if there were thousands of obstacles, they would face it with a smile. Only with a strong heart would one have the essence of a powerful warrior. The 6th battle had finished, and the 7th battle had begun. The 2 contestants were Tang Xiaoshan and a young warrior from the last hidden dragon rank. It seemed like he was fighting against Yi Chun. Tang Xiaoshan only threw out 1 blade attack and beat the powerful opponent, winning the 12th battle. A lot of people were talking about Tang Xiaoshan and Yi Chun. Among the top 10 new stars, Tang Xiaoshan was ranked 4th, while Yi Chun was ranked 5th. Right now, Yi Chun had overshadowed Tang Xiaoshan, which made him feel a huge pressure. He wanted to use his sword art to prove that he was more powerful than Yi Chun, and that he deserved to be ranked 4th. In the following 3rd and 4th battles, Tang Xiaoshan's performance had proved this fact. First, he used the blade scabbard to beat the 3rd opponent. Then he used the normal blade draw art to beat the 4th opponent, which made him the most famous one. Yi Chun did not have that kind of interest. Even if he did, he would not use Tang Xiaoshan as a competition target. He only needed to win 1 battle after another. Even so, Yi Chun's 14 wins in a row were still so eye-catching. His not competing was actually more convincing than Tang Xiaoshan's competition. The battles here were getting more and more intense, and the other groups were not any weaker. In the first group, Tuobaku had just beaten the young warrior, who was ranked 9th in the last hidden dragon rank. What was more interesting was that he had taken an attack from his opponent before fighting back. His horrifying defense had made a lot of people frown. No matter what, that young warrior who was ranked 9th in the last hidden dragon rank was not some random warrior. Who would dare to take an attack from him? In the second group, Wei Renjia, who had beaten Lynch, had lost a battle. His opponent was none other than one of the top young warriors, the head disciple of the Heartless Martial School, Li Daoxian. Wei Renjia's entry-level blade intent was without a doubt one of the top 3 warriors among the young generation. Unfortunately, his opponent was Li Daoxian, whose sword intent had reached 60%. Once his sword intent was released, even the air had frozen. He had blown away Wei Renjia's great blade with 1 sword attack. In the third group, Morong Qingqing and the head disciple of the Alchemist Martial School, Meng Chao, faced each other. Meng Chao's power was at the same level as Wu Liangyu's. His red burning godly palm was even hotter, able to melt gold and iron. However, facing Morong Qingqing's sky demon power field, his red burning godly palm was completely useless. He had only thrown out 3 attacks before he was caught by Morong Qingqing's sky demon power field, falling on the ground and making him dizzy. In the fourth group, the head disciple of the Sky Demon Martial School, Demon Eyes Mo Yen, had performed the power of his Sky Demon art. Every movement was almost perfect. In his eyes, his opponent was full of flaws. There were openings everywhere, and he could attack from anywhere. In the sixth group, the Fire Spirit Prince, Yen Qihua, had shown the people what it meant to be aggressive and unstoppable. The long blade in his hand was like a dancing fire dragon. With 1 blade attack, the young warrior who had set up layers of defense had been blown away while puking out blood. It was a clean cut. Right then, Everyone was very clear that the following battles could happen at any moment. The fourth battle of the fifth round, Yi Chen against Tang Xiaoshan. As the judge's voice was heard, the atmosphere in the audience seating became heated. Yi Chen was not surprised at all. Right now, the contestants were divided into 6 groups, and each group had 24 people. Excluding himself, there would be 23 people in total. 23 people would go through 10 rounds of battles, and each of them would have 10 opponents. Therefore, the chance for Yi Chen to fight against Tang Xiaoshan was around 40%. So it was expected that he would fight against Tang Xiaoshan. The 4th and 5th of the top 10 new stars are finally going to fight against each other. I wonder who will be more powerful. You will know when you see it. Before, they had been winning all the time. After this battle, one of them will lose his winning record. Tang Xiaoshan sneered. His body flashed and went through the dark blue light wall directly, appearing on the battling platform. He twisted his wrist, and a long blade appeared in his hand. Seeing Yi Chen get on the battling platform, Tang Xiaoshan looked down, staring at the blade and said, "Let me remind you, my blade intent has reached 50%. If you do not want to get hurt, you can choose to give up." What? Tang Xiaoshan's blade intent has reached 50%? It seems like his ranking in the top 10 new stars will increase by 1 or 2. If it is not the second, then it will be the third. Qian Yun and Gu Yuyan might not be able to beat him, and they might even be beaten instead. He has hidden his power too well. 50% blade intent. Among the young generation of blade users, he is only second to the fire spirit prince, Yan Qihua. Chapter 256. The blade intent was just like the sword intent. It was hard to comprehend, and it was also hard to increase. It would only get harder as one progressed. Learning the blade intent would be a process from nothing to something, which was the first level. Reaching the entry level of the blade intent would be another level. And after the entry level, it would be even more horrifying. Almost every 10% would be a level. For example, 40% blade intent would be a level, 50% blade intent would be a level, 60% blade intent would be a level. The entry-level blade intent would be a huge level. As for the completed blade intent, it could not be described as a level anymore. More accurately, it would be a review and refinement of the blade intent. Without enough experience and determination, the completed blade intent would be an unreachable dream for all blade artists. Among the young generation, once the sword intent and blade intent had reached the entry level, they would definitely be the top warriors. After every 10% increase, the battling power would increase by 1 level. In other words, Tang Xiaoshan, who had mastered 50% blade intent, was 2 levels higher than Wei Renjie, who had mastered the entry-level blade intent. The difference was very obvious. 50% blade intent, interesting. The fire spirit prince Yan Qihua was a bit surprised. He thought that besides him, the entry-level blade intent would already be the highest level. He did not expect that there would be another warrior who had mastered 50% blade intent, and it was not even a disciple from a rank 6 martial institution. Lin Yun glanced at Morong Qingqing intentionally and said with a smile on his face, "At least he would be able to save some face by giving up." But looking at him, he does not seem to have that intention. Morong Qingqing brushed her long hair behind her ear. "It is still too early to tell. We will know soon." Back in the Three-River City of the Spirit Nation, Yi Chen's sword intent had already reached the entry level, and he had beaten Gao Yuan, who was at a higher realm than him. Now that his cultivation had increased drastically, his sword intent might have made a breakthrough as well. Tang Xiaoshan wanted to scare away Yi Chen with only 1 sentence, but it was obviously not realistic. She believed that Yi Chen must still have something up his sleeves. Since that is the case, then let the result speak for itself. Lin Yun squeezed his eyes. On the battling platform, Yi Chen put his palm on the sword handle and said lightly, "The use of the blade intent is also a skill. I wonder to what extent you can use your 50% blade intent." Although Gao Feng's sword intent had reached the entry level, his method of using it was too rough and not flexible enough. It was far from pushing his entry-level sword intent to its limit. 50% blade intent is enough to crush you. Why would I need to use it? Clang. A bright blade light appeared as Tang Xiaoshan took out his long blade, pointing the blade tip at Yi Chen. The shocking blade aura was poured in with the blade intent, and it was like a long river, endless and unstoppable. Bring it on. I hope you won't get a shock later. Taking out half of his star scar sword, Yi Chen sensed Tang Xiaoshan's blade aura and shook his head. Just as he had expected, Tang Xiaoshan did not use his blade intent well enough. The blade aura looked powerful under the blade intent, but it was not tight enough, and had a lot of flaws. From this point of view, he was no different from Gao Feng. Otherwise, in the previous battles, Yi Chen would not have destroyed Gao Feng's sword aura, with only his sword aura, since he had only used a little bit of sword intent. Of course, Yi Chen actually hadn't completely grasped the usage of sword intent. Currently, he had only figured out the rough relationship between sword momentum, sword intent, and sword intent. In the early stages of sword training, the first thing one would touch would be the sword aura. Once the sword aura reached a certain level, one would be able to understand a bit of the sword art poetic perspective. Once the sword art poetic perspective was completed, the sword intent would start to grow. When all the conditions were met, it would be much easier to understand the sword intent. Therefore, the sword aura was like the grandfather of the sword intent, and the poetic perspective of the sword art was the father of the sword intent. The sword intent was the youngest, meaning that each generation would be more powerful than the previous one. However, for the others, Tang Xiaoshan's blade aura was indeed horrifying. It was like a long river was pouring towards them. No one could do what Yi Chen did, being able to see the flaws only from the blade aura. Perhaps even the fire spirit prince, Yan Qihua, could not do it. Waves rise. Waiting until the blade aura had been pushed to its limit, Tang Xiaoshan threw out his blade. His body flashed once, crossing dozens of meters, and appearing above Yi Chen's head within a second. He threw out a blade attack. Boom! That blade attack was extremely aggressive, like a river breaking its dam. Shocking cloud limitless. Judging on the rank of the martial arts, Yi Chen's shocking cloud sword art was obviously not as good as Tang Xiaoshan's blade art. However, the shocking cloud sword art he performed right then was different from the normal ones. With the help of the sky-shattering cloud poetic perspective, every movement had an extreme explosive power. It was like the wind was blowing, the clouds were surging, and the thunder and lightning were mixed together. Dang! A long string of sparks flew out, and Tang Xiaoshan's long blade had been blown away. Milky Way upside down. Tang Xiaoshan was shocked. His body spun in the air as he threw out a blade attack. That kind of aura was so powerful that it could crush the ground. A lot of young warriors were shocked. They thought that under that blade attack, there was only death, and there was no doubt about it. Shocking cloud indefinite. Turning into a shadow, Yi Chen flashed twice in a row, and appeared in Tang Xiaoshan's blind spot. He performed the most unpredictable sword attack of the shocking cloud sword art. Crack! The platform was cracked open by the blade qi, and Tang Xiaoshan lost sight of Yi Chen. He immediately turned around and twisted his body like a fish in the water, avoiding the attack of the sword qi, and throwing out a blade attack at the same time. The high-rank Earth Realm flying art, the river swimming body spell. Tang Xiaoshan was able to become one of the most powerful young warriors in the whole South Ridra region, as a rank 7 martial institution disciple. It would be impossible if he did not have some kind of power. The high-rank Earth Realm blade art combined with the blade intent, along with the river swimming body spell, would allow him to fight at any time he wanted. If it were someone else who was slightly weaker, they would have been defeated by him right away, without any chance to fight back. Separate. The blade qi attacked, and Yi Chen's body was separated into two. He flew out from the two sides, while the blade qi went through the middle, and landed on the dark blue light wall. So fast. My eyes cannot keep up. In such a short period of time, they could not only avoid their opponent's attack, but also fight back. It is unbelievable. In everyone's eyes, Yi Chen and Tang Xiaoshan were like two ghost shadows. The sword chi and blade chi could not even touch the edges of their bodies, as they landed on the battling platform and the light wall in vain. Let's see how you are going to dodge this. Tang Xiaoshan's body flashed once, approaching Yi Chen. Although the blade chi and the sword chi were powerful, in order to determine the winner, they would still need to have a real battle, unless one's power was way more powerful than the opponent's. Obviously, with only the blade chi, it would be almost impossible for Tang Xiaoshan to win against Yi Chen. The blade light flashed once as Tang Xiaoshan attacked toward Yi Chen with a powerful aura. Almost there, Yi Chen stood there without moving. Up until now, he had not even used 50 or 60% of his power. Besides adding some fun for himself, most importantly, the others were all hiding their power, like Xikong Sheng, the Fire Spirit Prince, Yin Qihua, and Lin Yin. None of them had brought out their real power to battle, including Yi Chen. Tang Xiaoshan's 50% blade intent was indeed powerful. But unfortunately, in front of Yi Chen, who had learned 70% sword intent, it was not enough at all. It could not affect his condition, nor could it attack him. It was like a kid holding an axe. Except for the slightly higher attacking power, it was still a kid. The battle had reached this point, and it was time to end it. Without using his 70% sword intent, Yi Chen held back a bit, and used his 50% sword intent, mixing it into the poetic perspective of the lone peak kill. Tang Xiaoshan looked shocked. It was like there were thousands of mountains and rivers between him and Yi Chen, and he could not get close to him no matter what. It was an illusion. Tang Xiaoshan realized it immediately, but it was already too late. For a blade artist, an illusion would be a fatal flaw. It did not matter whether he had seen through it or not. Shoo! The sword light stabbed over at a speed that was way beyond Tang Xiaoshan's reaction speed. The next second, a stream of blood shot out, which was extremely eye-catching. Tang Xiaoshan staggered backward. His left shoulder had already been stabbed by the sword. The sword hole was extremely small, seeming to have only broken the skin, which showed the control of the sword owner. How was this possible? An unbelievable expression flashed through Tang Xiaoshan's eyes. His face twisted as he yelled, "I have not lost yet. Your sword could not hurt me at all. I want to kill you." That sword attack had already succeeded. Now, I am telling you that I am going to throw out a sword attack. Try and block it. His body flew out as Yi Chen threw out his second sword attack. All of the young warriors below the stage were shocked. What had just happened? Tang Xiaoshan, who had been evenly matched with Yi Chen, had been stabbed. Yi Chen's sword attack was indeed fast, but it should not be fast enough for Tang Xiaoshan to react at all. Everyone opened their eyes wide, wanting to see what was so special about Yi Chen's sword attack. However, it was destined to be futile. Without being able to feel Yi Chen's poetic perspective, they would not be able to see anything special about it. Even the astral-reaching realm warriors would not be able to see through it. They could only feel a hint of it. Shoo! Blood spilled out. This time, Tang Xiaoshan had been wounded on his throat, which was a little bit broken. No one doubted that Yi Chen would not be able to kill Tang Xiaoshan. It was just a matter of whether he wanted to or not. Do I need to throw out a third sword attack? Yi Chen had already held back a bit. He did not push his sword speed to its limit. Otherwise, not to mention Tang Xiaoshan, who was having an illusion, except for a few powerful clasping Yuan realm warriors, no one would be able to see the track of the sword. They would only be able to see the effect of Tang Xiaoshan getting hit. Of course, Yi Chen could also slow down his sword speed, but a slow sword attack would be way more horrifying than a fast sword attack. Yi Chen had only learned a little bit of it, which was not as easy as a fast sword attack. Tang Xiaoshan's blade-raising posture froze. Just then, he did not even have the time to throw out his blade attack. His throat felt cold, and at that moment he was so close to death. How could this happen? I could not even block one sword attack. Tang Xiaoshan did not understand, not at all. All of a sudden he felt fear. It was the first time he realized how horrifying Yi Chen was. He did not attack at all, but once he attacked he would definitely kill. In all the previous battles, he had never been serious at all, because no one would be able to block even one sword attack from him. Yi Chen knew what he was thinking. Seriously, the lone peak kill was indeed quite extreme. It was all about killing with one attack. As long as the opponent was weaker than him, he would be able to kill them with one sword attack. Even if the opponent was at the same power level as him, it would still be very likely for him to die. It was a killing sword attack. Once it was thrown out, there would be only a slim chance of survival. Even the creator of this attack, Yi Chun, would sometimes feel frightened by it. When he performed this sword attack completely, Yi Chun believed that there would not be more than 5 people in the young generation who could survive. As for whether he had underestimated or overestimated it, he would need to confirm it further. Chapter 257. The 2 judges of the Group 5 were shocked. They indeed thought highly of Yi Chun, and thought that he was not an ordinary person. He had the power to compete for the top 20, and it was not impossible for him to make it into the top 10. However, that was all they thought highly of him. They did not think that Yi Chun could compete with the top 10 young warriors, not to mention killing Tang Xiaoshan with only one sword attack. They wondered if they had seen it wrong. The original Group 12 judge touched the arm of the original Group 3 judge. "We have made a mistake this time. We have indeed made a mistake. I am thinking, is this his real power? You mean he is still hiding his power? That is not possible, right? Why is it not possible? Since the beginning of the competition, he has surprised us time and time again. His hidden power has been revealed bit by bit. Who knows if this is his last ace or not?" The original Group 3 judge let out a long breath, waking up from his daze. That is true. No matter what, with his power to beat Tang Xiaoshan with only one sword attack, he must be another top young warrior. The Group 5 judge was not the only one who was shocked. All of the young warriors and warriors who were watching the competition were shocked as well. Tang Xiaoshan, who had learned the 50% blade intent, could not even survive one sword attack from Yi Chun. It was beyond their imagination. If it were the head disciple of the Heartless Martial School, Li Daoxian, who had performed that attack, they might not be this shocked. But Yi Chun was only a newcomer, a rising star. Before, no one had ever seen him, and no one had heard of his name before. In their eyes, winning one battle after another was nothing. Beating Gao Feng with one sword attack was still acceptable. But now, even Tang Xiaoshan had been beaten by him with one sword attack. How could they not be shocked? Damn, I bet that Yi Chun is definitely one of the top young warriors. Even Tang Xiaoshan, who had learned the 50% blade intent, could not even take one sword attack from him. Who said he is not one of the top young warriors? I am going to argue with him. That's right. This Yi Chun has hidden himself well enough. He has hidden himself deeper than anyone else. This is what it means to hide yourself so deeply that no one can see the bottom. Below the battling platform, Yi Chun's expression showed that he had expected it. His power was far weaker than Yi Chun's, but it did not mean that his intuition was worse. Judging from some of Yi Chun's subtle movements and expressions, Yi Chun had always had an aloof attitude, as if nothing could shake him. Of course, if one did not fight with Yi Chun himself, it would be hard for others to notice. The first place of Group 5 will be decided between him and Bing Ling. I wonder if they will meet each other in advance. Gao Feng was looking forward to it. Gu Qing, who had almost recovered, frowned as he simulated the battle with Yi Chun in his mind. The conclusion he got was that before his iron stick could reach Yi Chun, he would be stabbed in the throat. As for the strength of his protective Zhenqi, he did not think that he would be that much more powerful than Tang Xiaoshan. It would be almost the same. Lin Yin, who had made a big promise earlier, twitched his mouth. He did not know what to say. Tang Xiaoshan, whom he had high hopes for, could not even handle one attack in front of Yi Chun. He did not even have the power to fight. And he still wanted Yi Chun to admit defeat. Wasn't that just slapping his own mouth? He Qingqing, you have the best eyes. This Yi Chun is quite lucky. Even Tang Xiaoshan could not stop him. Lin Yin forced a laugh. He did not directly say that Yi Chun was powerful, but he said that he was lucky. No matter how powerful his opponent was, he would beat him once it came to the ranking competitions anyway. Morong Qingqing did not care about Lin Yin. All of her attention was on Yi Chun. Just like the Black Crow Man, Yi Chen's improvement was way too fast. It was almost inhuman. If she had to use one word to describe him, it would be monster. A monster-like sword artist, what an honor it would be. Ting! A sword ting sound was heard. It was Li Daoxuan's sword. His expression changed. This sword attack from Yi Chen had made him lose control of his sword intent, and it seemed like it was about to explode out. Before, I was still disappointed. I thought I would not run into a sword artist worth fighting seriously in the Hidden Dragon rank competitions. Taking back his sword intent, Li Daoxian took a deep breath. Someone had noticed the strange look on Li Daoxuan's face, and they were secretly shocked. The heartless sword artist, Li Daoxian, had finally started to get serious. In the following competitions, the two top sword artists would definitely run into each other. Yi Chen wins. The judge did not waste any more time and announced the result of the battle. Putting his star scar sword back into its scabbard, Yi Chen looked at Li Daoxian from a distance. His opponent's out-of-control sword intent could fool the others, but not him. If Xikong Sheng was his biggest opponent, then Li Daoxian would be his biggest opponent among all the sword artists. No matter if Li Daoxian could be a threat to him or not, when the two battled, they would both learn a lot from each other, which was exactly what Yi Chen needed the most. Oh, such sharp senses. Li Daoxian flicked his eyebrows. His sword intent had only gone out of control for a second, and the others would not be able to sense it. They would only be able to see something from his expression. He believed that Yi Chen was different from the others, as he had sensed his heartless sword intent. The leader of the Heartless Martial School flicked his fingers, a light smile appearing on his face. What Daoxian lacked was a sword artist-worthy opponent, and this Yi Chen had the right to do so. It would be great if he were a disciple of our Heartless Martial School. Why do I think he is more suitable to train the Heartless spell than Daoxian? As a powerful Sea of Souls realm warrior, the leader of the Heartless Martial School could see it more clearly than anyone else. That kind of detachment of Yi Chen was not something that he purposely showed. It was his nature, and the so-called Heartless of the Heartless Martial School required this kind of detachment. In comparison, Li Daoxian seemed to be a bit weaker than Yi Chen. But of course, the leader of the Heartless Martial School was very confident in Li Daoxian, and did not think that he would lose to Yi Chen. The heartless sword intent of the Heartless Martial School was not just for show. Getting off the stage, Yi Chen went back to where he was standing, but he was still the center of attention. Everyone had acknowledged Yi Chen's identity as a top young warrior, and some of the female disciples kept checking out Yi Chen. Yi Chen looked like he was only 17 or 18 years old. He was wearing blue robes, looking very handsome. His extreme calmness and detachment on the stage added a mysterious aura to him, which was exactly what the girls liked the most. If it were not for Su Jing and Zhu Mei standing right next to Yi Chen, a lot of the female disciples would have already gone over to talk to him. The path of a martial artist was very lonely. If one could have someone to rely on, a partner who could support each other, then the journey of cultivation would be much more interesting. Moreover, martial artists were different from normal people, especially those who had reached a certain level of cultivation. For example, astral-reaching realm martial artists could live for 200 years, which was twice as long as normal people. Sea of Souls realm martial artists could live for 300 years, which was 3 times as long as normal people. If the partner's talent and comprehension were not good, it would be hard for them to grow old together. With Yi Chen's age and the talent he had shown, no one would think that he could not become an astral-reaching realm martial artist. He might even reach the Sea of Souls realm in the future. In the audience seating, Ji Xueyan, who had been paying close attention to Yi Chen, had a complicated expression on her face. She bit her lower lip. It was not that she had never regretted it before, but it was not as intense as today. Every time Yi Chen won, her mind would be shaken. Seeing his calm expression and detachment, she felt very sad, as if she had lost something. Back then, she had focused all her attention on cultivation, and did not like Yi Chen, who was engaged to her. Therefore, she had come to the Sky Cloud Martial School to cancel the engagement, hoping that he would not bother her anymore. What was out of her expectation was that Yi Chun had agreed without hesitation. At that time, she was very surprised and annoyed at the same time. It seemed like Yi Chun did not care about her at all, and her coming here was unnecessary and childish. This should be what made her annoyed. After returning to the Emerald Martial School, she quickly forgot about this. The two of them were not from the same world, and there would not be any interaction between them in the future. Training hard was the most important thing for her. She thought that the days would go by peacefully like this, until the Emerald Martial School held a celebration party to celebrate their head disciple's breakthrough into the clasping Yuan realm. That was when Yi Chun arrived. During the competition, he had beaten the number 1 inner disciple of the Emerald Martial School, Cheng Jun, and the third core disciple of the Emerald Martial School, Sherpatian. Only then did Ji Shuiyan know what kind of identity Yi Chun had used to come to the Emerald Martial School. At that time she was very surprised. She had no idea how Yi Chun had trained himself to be able to get rid of his mediocre appearance in such a short period of time, and put on the clothes of a genius. Sherpatian had to stay in the Emerald Martial School for 7 to 8 years to reach that level, while Yi Chun had only spent less than a year to surpass him, which sounded very unbelievable. If that was all, it would not be a big deal. But what happened in the Heavenly Dream Ancient region had completely shocked her. First, he had saved her from the hands of young Master Chun, and then he had left right away, as if he had saved someone who had nothing to do with him. This made her feel neglected, but at the same time, she also had a strange feeling. She couldn't help but pay attention to him. Even when Yuan Hengying wanted to kill him, she couldn't bear it anymore, and asked for help from her head disciple, Zhuang Fei. But later, she realized that it was unnecessary. In the Heavenly Dream Battle Palace, he had not only broken through to the clasping Yuan realm, he had also defeated Yuan Hengying and her head disciple, which made him the biggest winner in the Heavenly Dream Ancient region. Even that hidden dragon-ranked martial artist, Hong Qianjun, seemed to have been killed by him, and it was even before he entered the Heavenly Dream Battle Palace. This made her realize that Yi Chun had already become the number 1 martial artist among the young generation of the Windy Nation, and also the number 1 martial artist among the young generation of the entire Windy Nation. He had left everyone behind and walked further and further on his own. His name had already become a legend in the Windy Nation. In the martial world, everyone was talking about him. Those female disciples, young ladies from big families, rich families, and even young ladies from government families, all of them were talking about Yi Chun. They were talking about this rare martial genius of the Windy Nation. Some people even called him the 1,000-year genius, thinking that with his amazing cultivation speed, he could possibly become the first Sea of Souls realm martial artist in the Windy Nation in the past 1,000 years. This speculation had come true, and it had become a reality. Right now, Yi Chun was indeed the top martial genius of the Windy Nation. After going out for a trip, he had reached the late clasping Yuan realm from the early clasping Yuan realm, which meant that his power had increased by more than 2 times. It could not be more accurate to describe him as 1,000 miles in a day. He had passed the 3 challenges of the Dragon Gate in an amazing way. In the first stage of the elimination battles, he had won 10 out of 10 battles, and every battle was extremely easy. In the second stage of the elimination battles, he had first beaten Gao Feng, who was ranked number 9 in the top 10 new stars, and then he had beaten the third disciple of the Sky Demon Martial School, Wu Liangyu. Then, he had beaten Tang Xiaoshan with an unimaginable sword attack, letting everyone know that he had not been serious about the previous battles, and that it was just the beginning. Meanwhile, all of the older young warriors of the Windy Nation had already been eliminated a long time ago. They could only watch him battling on the stage, moving forward with determination and power. The Hidden Dragon rank was the top competition in the South Rudra region. No matter how good Yi Chun's later battles were, he was already shining enough right now. His fame was catching up with the top young warriors of the South Rudra region. As for the Windy Nation, it was only his starting point, and could not catch up with him at all. Right now, his stage was the South Rudra region, where he would compete with all of the top martial geniuses from the super martial institutions, becoming a real powerful warrior step by step. With that thought in mind, Ji Shuiyan looked at Yi Chen again. The next opponents would be more and more powerful, especially Sikong Sheng and the others, who were terrifyingly powerful. It was hard for people to even think about fighting back. Could he create another miracle? Perhaps this thought was a bit too crazy. Chapter 258. Time flew by, and the competition entered the 7th round. I admit defeat. Below the stage, a contestant looked at Yi Chen, raised his hand and said to the referee. The judge nodded. He didn't find it strange at all. Apart from this match, in the 6th round, there were also people who chose to surrender. They were Bing Ling, Gu Qing, Yi Chen and a few others. Now that the 2nd stage of the elimination round had entered its later stages, it was unwise to waste time and energy on opponents they couldn't win against. Wouldn't it be better to save it for others? The next battle was between Wu Liangyu and Gao Feng. Judging from the previous battles, Gao Feng, who had mastered the entry-level sword intent, was obviously slightly more powerful than Wu Liangyu. However, power was power, and battling was battling. Although the two were directly related, it was definitely not equal. It was not that rare for a weaker warrior to win against a stronger warrior. Plus, the gap between the two was not that big. It would still take a battle to decide who would win. Right from the start, Wu Liangyu had used his Black Crow Great Art to increase the distance between him and Gao Feng. Gao Feng also knew that his speed was not as fast as Wu Liangyu, so he decided to use the strategy of taking it slow and steady. Death Storm. The wings combined with the twin blades. Wu Liangyu's attacking power had been pushed to its limit, attacking towards Gao Feng. Ghost Shock Wind. If Wu Liangyu's attack was the stacking of the cutting wave, then Gao Feng's attack was the stacking of the sword wind. It could be gathered and scattered at will. When it was gathered, it would be an unstoppable sword chi, and when it was scattered, it would be a bone-piercing sword wind that could destroy great steel. Once the two clashed, the cutting wave and the sword wind flew everywhere, cutting the entire platform. Whoosh! A human shadow flashed as Gao Feng rushed out from the chaotic chi flow. He appeared in midair within a second, throwing out a sword attack towards Wu Liangyu. Unfortunately, Wu Liangyu had sensed it, so he dodged it and returned with 2 dark light blade chi attacks. Gao Feng's body twisted in the air, spinning intensely like a spinning top. He drew an exaggerated path in the surreal sky, attacking Wu Liangyu again. Middle rank Earth Realm Movement Art Void Twist. Competing in Qinggong. Do you think you can compete with the Black Crow Great Art? Wu Liangyu said with disdain. His hands shook as his body flew up like lightning. Flying sword drawing technique. Unexpectedly, Gao Feng was already prepared. He didn't stop spinning, and his whole body rose into the air. His right hand gripped the hilt of his sword, and a stunning sword light flashed. Pucci! Wu Liangyu's left wing had been cut off, and his balance had been broken. His speed was drastically reduced, and the next second, he felt a sharp pain coming from his chest. Thank you for letting me win. Gao Feng returned his sword to its sheath and landed on the ground. Wu Liangyu landed on the platform as well. He looked down and saw a red dot on his chest. He said with a low voice, I lost. I did not expect you to have this kind of attack. In Jianghu, although sword drawing art manuals were not as common as cabbages, but if you looked hard enough, you could still find them. However, famous sword drawing arts were relatively rare. For example, the sword drawing art that Gao Feng performed was definitely not higher than low-rank Earth Realm, but if it was used well, its power would not be weaker than mid-rank Earth Realm, or even high-rank Earth Realm martial skills. If he had known that Gao Feng had this attack, Wu Liangyu, who was prepared for it, would not have lost the battle so easily. This was the uncertainty factor in a battle. You would never know if the opponent still had other hidden cards. Gao Feng wins. The original Group 3 referee revealed a look of admiration. It was rare to see a swordsman as agile as Gao Feng. The flying sword drawing technique is so cool. Why did he not use this attack when he was fighting against Yi Chen? Maybe it would have worked. Are you stupid? Did you not see how fast Yi Chen's reaction was? How fast was his sword attack? Plus, would Yi Chen give Gao Feng the chance to win? Every time after an exciting battle, the warriors who were watching would talk about it. And this time was no exception. Chin, chin, chin. The battle here had already ended, but Lynch's battle had just begun. His opponent was a sword artist. Although his sword intent had not even reached 20%, which was not as powerful as Lynch's blade intent, that was almost at the entry level. Because of his high cultivation and high-rank sword art, he was able to suppress Lynch completely. The blade and sword clashed, bringing up a bunch of burning sparks. Lynch's forehead was dripping with sweat, but his eyes were still determined. Even though he was at an absolute disadvantage, he did not have the thought of giving up. He kept waving his blade and blocking out the attacks. Lose for me. Blowing away Lynch's long blade with one sword attack, the sword artist pointed out his finger. Shoo! The finger light was extremely sharp, piercing through Lynch's protective Zhenqi layer. Innate qi. With a strange light in his eyes, Lynch did not back out. He opened his mouth and spat out a beam of white light. What? The sword artist was shocked. His finger attack could wound Lynch badly. But that white light was as fast as lightning, and it could wound him badly as well. He did not plan to trade injury for injury. His power was higher than Lynch's. Even if he lost this chance, he could still win the battle without any injuries. Shoo! All of a sudden, the sword artist's body moved to the side, and the white light brushed past his ear. However, right then, the long sword that had been pushed away by Lynch suddenly flew out of his hand and landed in his left hand. The blade light flashed once, and the sword artist looked at his chest in disbelief. The clothes there had been cut open, and his skin felt cold. Breathing heavily, the young sword artist felt very annoyed. He stared at Lynch angrily, unable to control his emotions. It seemed like he was about to attack. Huh, the judge snorted. With the help of his Zhen Yuan, his voice was like thunder on a sunny day, waking the young sword artist up. You're good this time. Next time, don't blame me for being ruthless. After saying those words, the young sword artist waved his sleeves and got off the stage. Lynch was expressionless as he put his blade back into its scabbard. Just like that, Lynch used an unimaginable method to turn defeat into victory, and won the battle with great difficulty. Meanwhile, the audience had already started talking about it. Damn, that works too. Why not? Does the competition have to be one move after another, and whoever is stronger will win? Powerful. This is an eye-opener for me. Unfortunately, there were too many people watching the battle. Otherwise, I could use it as my trump card. Although the crowd did not have the innate qi that Lynch used, they could find some similar martial techniques, such as a sword in one's mouth, a sword formed from sound, or a hidden weapon in one's mouth. During the battle, one just had to push their zhenqi and spit it out. As for the weapon after that, it was even easier to change hands. Almost everyone could do it. Of course, it would not be easy to train it to an extremely fast level. All in all, after this battle, Lynch had become famous as well. Not far away, Yi Chen took back his sight from Lynch. He knew that Lynch had hidden something, and it turned out to be so. It seemed like the young warriors who had been hiding their power did not want to lose anymore. Out of the 24 people, only 12 would make it to the next stage and become powerful warriors on the hidden dragon rank. If they did not use their full power now, it would be too late for regrets. Shifting his attention, Yi Chen looked over to where Su Jing was fighting. Just like the previous battles, Su Jing was still the same. Her power had been kept stable and had not weakened at all. She also did not use her ace attack like Gao Feng and Lynch did. In fact, she would definitely make it to the hidden dragon rank, so there was no need for her to reveal her ace attack right now. Boom! A fist landed on her opponent's crossed arms. Su Jing's right arm shook, and a gold light exploded, blowing her opponent away and smashing him onto the light wall. Su Jing wins. Up until now, Su Jing had only lost one battle, and that was against the head disciple of the Fire Spirit Martial Hall, the Fire Spirit Prince Yin Qihua. Yi Chen and Su Jing will definitely make it to the hidden dragon rank, And Lynch also has more than 80% chance. I really did not expect that the Windy Nation would have such potential. On the audience seating, the leader of the Rudra Martial School, Long Bai, looked at the three of them with a judging look, and a light smile appeared on her face. The headmaster of the Rudra Martial School, a beautiful middle-aged woman, said, "Yeah, when we first came to the Windy Nation, there were no martial geniuses at all. It has only been a couple of years, and now there are so many martial geniuses. Even a top martial genius like Yi Chen has appeared. But geniuses are always envied, and I am afraid that there will be people who want to kill them." Long Bai sneered. "Geniuses need to go through hardships in order to achieve great things. But if someone tries to bully you, then don't blame me." Looking at Long Bai's cold face, the headmaster of the Rudra Martial School did not say another word. She was very clear that the leader of a rank 7 martial institution, which seemed to be very powerful in other people's eyes, could easily destroy it. Coming to the Windy Nation and establishing the Rudra Martial School was only a temporary interest of hers. Of course, the old leader was also very supportive of it. The 7th round had finished, and so had the 8th round. The 9th round had begun. The third battle of the 9th round, Yi Chen against Bing Ling. Boom! Once the judge's voice came out, the audience started to clamor. Finally, they are going to fight each other. I thought it would be in the ranking competition. I wonder who is more powerful between Yi Chen and Bing Ling. Both of them are top young warriors, and their attacking power is extraordinary. I think Bing Ling is more powerful. Her attack and defense are both flawless. Yi Chen might not be able to break her defense. I think Yi Chen will win. His power is obvious. Everyone was expressing their opinions. On the battling platform, Yi Chen and Bing Ling stood 50 meters away from each other. Creak. Creak. Bing Ling did not dare to underestimate Yi Chen. She pushed her ice element Jinqi as soon as she got on the platform, creating layers and layers of oval-shaped frost around her body. The shocking cold qi had even frozen the ground. Countless rice-sized ice crystals fell from the sky, flying everywhere. Ice rock crack. With everything prepared, Bing Ling attacked first. Her body flashed, and her fist that was wrapped in ice broke through the air, attacking towards Yi Chen. Who? An invisible sword intent spread out, causing a light pattern to appear in the air. Yi Chen took a step forward, holding his star scar sword in his hand, as he threw out a heavy attack. Sky-shattering clouds. Boom! Ice shards splashed everywhere. Bing Ling backed out, while Yi Chen only backed out 3 steps. The sky-shattering clouds with 50% sword intent was even more powerful than the Lone Peak kill with 50% sword intent. After all, the Lone Peak kill was only a fatal attack, and was not suitable for fighting head-on. Right now he was not confident that he could beat Bing Ling with 50% sword intent, because her defense was way too powerful. She could even block out Gu Qing's full attack. Plus, Yi Chen did not want to expose his 60%, or even 70% sword intent. It was not the right time yet, so using the sky-shattering clouds would be the wisest choice. After pushing back Bing Ling with one sword attack, Yi Chen's body split into 3, attacking from 3 different angles. This is the real body. Bing Ling could tell with a glance that the 2 Jinqi shadows did not have any weapons. Only the real body had weapons, which was slightly different from Gu Qing's separating body art. Of course, it did not mean that Yi Chen's separating body art was not as good as Gu Qing's separating body art. It was just a different focus. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.